The first thing I felt when I jolted awake was the sharp, relentless cry of cicadas outside the window, their buzzing slicing through the heavy summer air like 1,000 tiny knives. A damp towel rested on my forehead, its cool touch sliding down my skin, mixing with the cold sweat that had soaked my temples and plastered strands of hair to my cheeks. I sat up abruptly, my chest rising and falling hard, gasping as if I'd just broken the surface of deep water. What I saw wasn't the stark white ceiling of a hospital room from my final days. No beeping machines, no sterile smell of disinfectant. Instead, I stared at the familiar wooden beams of my old clay house, dark and sturdy, with a piece of red paper from last New Year's still hanging in the corner, its edges slightly curled from the humidity. The words "double happiness" were faded but unmistakable. "Lisa, thank goodness you're awake." Mom's voice cut through my daze. She hurried in from the doorway, holding an enamel bowl carefully in both hands. A few bits of corn grits still clung to her lips. She must have been eating while watching over me. "You had a fever all night. Your father and I were scared half to death. In just 3 days, it's your big wedding with Captain Grant. You can't afford to have anything go wrong. Captain Grant." Those 3 words seared into my heart like a red-hot iron. I froze, disbelief washing over me in a crashing wave. My hand instinctively grabbed the pillow beside me, and my fingers brushed against the uneven stitches of the red double happiness symbol Mom had sewn into the coarse pillowcase just a few nights ago. She had stayed up late, needle flashing under the oil lamp, humming softly as she worked. I threw off the quilt, stepped barefoot onto the cold dirt floor, and ran to the wooden chest by the wall. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside lay a neatly folded red wedding outfit, bright as fresh blood, and a brand new pair of corduroy shoes. Next to them sat a brown envelope, its surface marked with Captain Grant's sharp, confident handwriting, "To Comrade Lisa Lynn." This wasn't a dream. I had really come back. Back to the summer of 1982, 3 days before my wedding to that man. Memories of my previous life surged back like a tidal wave, almost drowning me. Grant had been a rising star in the military, admired by everyone in the village and beyond. People had envied me for marrying such a hero. But only I knew the filth and cold calculation hidden behind that glamorous facade. He hadn't married me for love. He saw my father, his former superior officer, as a man with influence and connections that could propel his career. I was nothing more than a convenient stepping stone for his ambition. 3 years after the wedding, when he was promoted to division commander, his true nature had emerged like poison seeping through cracks. The young nurse, Bella White, the one who always greeted me sweetly and called me sister-in-law, became his mistress. Together, they schemed to destroy me. They spread vicious lies that I was infertile, forged fake photos to make it look like I had an affair, and gave him the perfect excuse to throw me out like garbage. My parents had tried everything to defend me and seek justice, but Grant retaliated with ruthless precision. My father, furious and heartbroken, suffered a stroke and became paralyzed. My mother cried every day until she wasted away and died, less than half a year later. As for me, after being expelled from the military family housing compound, I had no one and nowhere to go. I died that bitter winter, sick, penniless, and alone, at the age of 30. Before my eyes closed for the last time, I saw them. Grant and Bella, sitting in a shiny black car, dressed elegantly, with a chubby little boy between them. Bella leaned against his shoulder, smiling with smug satisfaction. "Well, Mayor Grant, you really know how to get things done," she had laughed. "Without Lisa Lynn dragging you down, everything's been smooth sailing." Grant had pulled her close, his tones soft and smug. "Of course. She and her dead parents were just stepping stones on my path to success." Hatred flooded every vein in my body now, as fresh as the day I died. I clenched my fist so tightly that my nails dug into my palms, breaking the skin. But I didn't even feel the pain. This time, I swore silently to myself, I won't let history repeat itself. "Grant, Bella, everything you owe me, and everything you owe my parents, I'll make you repay with interest." "Lisa, what's wrong?" Mom's voice broke through the storm in my head. Seeing my pale face and the cold fury burning in my eyes, she rushed over, grabbing my hand in panic. "Maybe your fever hasn't fully gone down yet," she said softly, her brow creased with worry. Why don't we go to the village clinic again and have them take a look? I took a deep breath, forcing down the emotions surging in my chest like a raging river. Turning toward her, I met her kind, worried eyes with steady resolve. Mom, I'm not getting married. Her eyes widened in shock. The enamel bowl slipped from her hands and crashed onto the ground, scattering corn porridge everywhere. What nonsense are you talking about? She cried, her voice rising. The wedding date's already set, and the invitations have been sent out. Captain Grant is the pride of our village. So many girls would give anything to marry him. And you. Why on earth would you suddenly say you're not getting married? He's not a good man, I said through clenched teeth, struggling to keep my voice calm even as the memories clawed at me. Mom, Grant already has someone else and she's in the army with him. Watch your mouth. Dad's voice came from the doorway, deep and stern. He had heard the commotion and walked in, his brows furrowed deeply, the lines on his weathered face deepening with confusion. I watched Captain Grant grow up. He's an upright, disciplined officer. How could he ever do something like that? Lisa, have you lost your mind from the fever? You're talking nonsense. I knew they wouldn't believe me easily. In everyone's eyes, Grant was honest, reliable, and had a bright future ahead of him. But I knew better. That image was nothing more than a mask he had carefully crafted over years. Dad, Mom, I'm not imagining things and I'm not confused, I said, looking straight into their eyes, enunciating every word slowly and clearly. He wrote me a letter a few days ago. The contents were vague, full of empty words about work and the wedding date. There wasn't a single sentence that sounded sincere or caring. And I heard people say he's been spending a lot of time lately with Bella White, the nurse from his unit. Many people have seen them together, walking in the woods behind the camp, exchanging gifts. I couldn't tell them I had lived this all once before, that I had died betrayed and broken because of him. All I could do was describe every strange detail I had noticed recently, the ones I had foolishly brushed off in my past life, thinking he was just busy. Back then I ignored it, I continued, my voice gaining strength. But now, looking back, all of it was full of cracks. He promised he'd come back this weekend to discuss the wedding arrangements, but then he suddenly said there was a mission and he couldn't return. Who disappears 3 days before their wedding? My parents exchanged uneasy glances. They took the letters I pulled from the chest, passing them between their calloused hands. Their brows furrowed deeper with each line they read. They were simple, honest people from the countryside, but not fools. Once I pointed it out, even they could sense that something wasn't right. The letters were cold, mechanical, like reports rather than love notes from a groom-to-be. Mom hesitated, her eyes filled with worry as she set the letters down. But what should we do, Lisa? The date's already set. If we cancel it now, what will people say about us? The whole village is talking about the wedding. It doesn't matter what people say, I replied urgently, gripping her rough, work-worn hand in mine. What matters is that we don't walk into a trap. Mom, Dad, Grant is about to be promoted to division commander. He's rushing this wedding because he wants to use our family's connections, Dad's old influence in the army, to smooth his path. Once he's achieved his goal, once he's secure in his position, he'll throw me away like yesterday's scraps. And when that happens, our whole family will suffer because of him. I looked at them, my voice trembling but determined, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes for the first time since waking. Please believe me this once. Come with me to his unit. Let's see for ourselves if he truly wants to marry me. If I'm wrong, we'll come back and finish preparing for the wedding properly. But if I'm right, we still have time to stop this before he ruins all of our lives. The cicadas outside were still buzzing loudly, their relentless chorus filling the heavy summer air, but inside the mud brick house, everything felt frozen. My parents stared at my determined eyes, then down at the letters in their hands. Slowly, the expressions on their faces began to change, from doubt to unease, then to something like reluctant understanding. After a long silence that felt like an eternity, Dad let out a deep, heavy sigh. "All right," he said, his voice thick with the weight of decision. "I believe you. Pack your things. We're going to the base right now." The moment those words left his mouth, Mom stopped hesitating. She wiped at the corners of her eyes with the back of her hand, turned around, and headed toward the other room. Lisa, pack your clothes. Bring that blue cotton shirt, it'll be cooler for the trip. Her movements were quick and practiced, but her trembling fingers betrayed her nerves. Clearly, she was still uneasy inside, torn between trusting her daughter and the fear of what this might mean. I hurried to follow her and help. In the corner of the mud brick house sat a few old canvas bags, Dad's from his years in the army. Mom stuffed coarse cotton clothes into one, then wrapped up the last 2 pounds of white flour flatbreads we had saved and tucked in a small jar of pickled vegetables. "These are for the road," she murmured, her voice low. "Food on the train costs too much. We'll save where we can." Dad went to the commune office to get a travel permit. In the 1980s, without an introduction letter stamped by the local brigade, it was nearly impossible to travel far, especially to a military base. While he was gone, I took the chance to gather all of Grant's letters and pulled out the Shanghai wristwatch he had given me last year when he came home on leave, a so-called token of love. In my past life, I had cherished it like a treasure, polishing it every night and wearing it proudly. Now, the shine of that metal strap made me sick to my stomach. It was just another calculated gift, part of his performance. I slipped the watch into my pocket, thinking quietly, if we really caught him in the act this time, this watch could serve as evidence. A token proving our engagement, something to keep him from denying everything later. Half an hour later, Dad came back with the letter of introduction, stamped in bold red ink by the brigade office. His face was dark and serious. The captain asked why we're suddenly going to the army base. He said, "I just told him Lisa wanted to meet Captain Grant ahead of time to talk about the wedding details." He paused, looking at me with a mix of pride and concern. "Once you get there, remember to stay calm. Speak carefully. Don't make things worse than they already are." I nodded firmly. "Dad, I understand. I'm not going there to make trouble. I just want a clear answer. If he truly means what he says, then we'll come back and prepare the wedding properly. But if he's hiding something, we can't walk blindly into a fire pit." By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky in streaks of orange and red, we locked up the house and started toward the town with our bags on our backs. Under the old locust tree at the village entrance, a few neighbors sitting in the shade lifted their heads to watch us curiously. "Hey, old Lynn, where are you all heading?" one of them called out. "Isn't your daughter's big day just 3 days away?" Dad forced a smile, his voice even. "We're going to visit Captain Grant at the base. There are a few things about the wedding we need to confirm in person." He didn't want to spread our worries in public, and I understood. I lowered my head and followed quietly behind them, the dirt road crunching under my shoes. The train from town to the county wouldn't depart until after midnight. We waited on a long wooden bench in the dim yellow glow of the station lights, the air thick with the smell of coal smoke and distant rain. Mom sighed and started again, her voice low and hesitant. "Lisa, what if this turns out to be nothing? Wouldn't we be embarrassing him for no reason? Captain Grant is a proud man. What if he holds it against you later?" "Respect goes both ways, Mom," I said softly, taking her rough hand in mine. Her palm was covered in thick calluses from years of hard work in the fields and at home. If he really sees me as his fiancé, he should be open and honest with me, not hiding away and getting close to another woman. And if he resents me for asking the truth, then he's not the kind of man I want to spend my life with. Dad sat nearby, puffing on his old pipe. The sparks inside the bowl glowed and dimmed in rhythm with his slow, thoughtful breathing. Finally, he nodded. "Lisa's right. Marriage is for life. Better to face things now than suffer later. If Captain Grant has truly done you wrong, then our family won't let anyone walk over us." The train rattled into the station in the middle of the night, its metal wheels clanking rhythmically against the tracks like a heartbeat in the dark. The green carriages were packed with people, the air thick with the mingled smells of sweat, cigarette smoke, and instant noodles. We finally managed to find 3 seats together. Mom leaned against my shoulder, dozing lightly, while Dad kept a watchful eye on our luggage, his pipe long since gone cold. I, however, couldn't sleep at all. Outside the window, the world was shrouded in darkness, broken only by the occasional distant flicker of light from a village or passing station. My mind drifted back to my previous life, to that same train ride to the army base years later. Back then, Grant had just been promoted to division commander. I had been overjoyed and eager, bringing him gifts from our hometown to celebrate his success. But when I arrived at his dorm, I walked straight into his betrayal. Him and Bella wrapped in each other's arms in the very bed meant for our future. I had cried, screamed, begged for an explanation. But Grant had turned it all around, accusing me of being unreasonable and jealous. Bella stood by his side, tears shimmering in her eyes, claiming it was her fault. She had admired him, approached him first. She made herself look pure and innocent, while I was painted as hysterical and unstable. In the end, Grant had his guard escort me out of the base, like an embarrassment. Word spread like wildfire, and soon I became a laughingstock. A jealous, unstable fiancé who had lost her dignity. The memory made my fists clench tight, my nails digging deep into my palms until they stung. This time, I told myself fiercely, I would never again be that weak, gullible woman. Never again would I be the Lisa Lynn who only knew how to cry and endure. I would expose their hypocrisy right in front of my parents, strip away their false masks, and make them pay for everything they'd done. The steady clatter of the train wheels echoed in my chest like a drumbeat of resolve. I glanced at my parents sleeping beside me, exhaustion etched into their faces. The deep lines around Dad's eyes from years of worry, the gray strands in Mom's hair from endless labor. My heart tightened with a fierce determination. In this life, I'll protect them. I'll never let them endure the pain and humiliation they suffered before. By dawn, the train finally pulled into the city, where the army base was located. We followed the crowd out of the station, the morning air cool and crisp against our tired faces. The streets were already coming alive, lined with small breakfast stalls selling fried dough sticks, soy milk, and tea eggs. Dad bought 3 sticks of dough and 3 bowls of soy milk. We crouched by the roadside and ate quickly, the hot soy milk warming our stomachs as we asked around for the bus to the army base. The base was located at the foot of a mountain on the outskirts. The bus jolted along the rough dirt road, kicking up clouds of dust. The farther we went, the fewer the houses became. Fields of crops stretched out along both sides, green and swaying gently in the breeze. Watching the familiar scenery pass by, my heart began to pound faster, part nerves, part grim anticipation. Grant, Bella, I'm coming for you. Without me as your stepping stone, let's see how far you can climb. After more than an hour of bumping along dusty roads, the bus finally stopped in front of the base. From a distance, I saw 2 massive iron gates painted deep green, sturdy and imposing. 2 guards stood at attention on either side, rifles slung at their waists, their sharp eyes scanning everyone who passed. Inside, I could faintly hear the sound of the bugle and soldiers shouting commands during morning training. The air itself carried a sense of rigid discipline and quiet tension. Mom instinctively grabbed my arm, her voice trembling slightly. Lisa, we're really here. Maybe we should think this through again. If things blow up, it won't end well for anyone. Mom, we've come this far, I said, patting her hand gently and giving her a reassuring look. There's nothing more to think about. We're not here to make a scene. We're here to get answers. There's nothing wrong with that. Dad took a deep breath and adjusted the canvas bag on his shoulder. Let's go, he said firmly. As long as I'm here, no one will dare push you 2 around. The 3 of us walked toward the gate, but before we could get close, one of the guards stepped forward to stop us. Comrades, who are you here to see? Do you have an introduction letter? Dad quickly pulled the brigade-stamped letter from his pocket and handed it over. The guard took it and began to read carefully, his eyes narrowing. He looked up from the letter and gave us another quick glance. You're here to see Captain Grant? Yes, I stepped forward calmly, keeping my tone steady and polite. I'm his fiancée, Lisa Lynn. These are my parents. We came to discuss some final wedding details with him. The guard frowned slightly. Captain Grant has a training assignment this morning. He might not be in his quarters. And according to the regulations, visitors must register first and be personally escorted by the family member or soldier they're visiting. Training assignment. I let out a cold laugh in my heart. In my past life, at this exact time, Grant hadn't been in any training. He had been hiding in his quarters with Bella. He had told me he couldn't come home to discuss wedding plans because the unit had an important mission. So this was the mission he was talking about, spending the morning in bed with his lover. We came all the way from our hometown, I said sincerely, forcing warmth into my voice despite the anger simmering inside. We traveled all night by train just to see Captain Grant in person. The wedding is only 3 days away. There are things we really need to confirm face to face. Could you please make an exception this once? I'm sorry, the guard replied firmly, his expression unchanging. Rules are rules. I can't break them. Mom tugged gently at my sleeve, whispering, Lisa, maybe we should just wait here until his training ends. I lowered my voice, leaning close. If he finds out we're here, he'll probably hide her before we can catch them together. We'll never see the truth that way. My mind raced. In my previous life, I had visited the base often and knew how things worked here. I remembered the names of a few people close to Grant. I turned to the guard and asked casually, Comrade, do you happen to know Private Wang? He's Captain Grant's orderly. I met him last time I visited. The guard looked surprised, clearly not expecting me to know anyone from inside. He hesitated a moment, then nodded. All right, I can call him for you. But if he's not around, or if Captain Grant's busy, you'll still have to wait outside. Of course, I said quickly. He walked into the duty room by the gate, picked up the phone, and dialed. My heart pounded as I watched from outside. Please let him still be working under Grant, I prayed silently. If he's nearby, Grant might be warned. But if not, this might be our only chance. A few tense minutes later, the guard came back out. Private Wang said he's on his way to get you. Please wait here for a moment. Relief washed over me. Good. He's not with Grant right now. Soon after, a young soldier in his early 20s came jogging toward us in his green uniform. It was indeed Private Wang. When he saw us, his eyes widened in surprise. Miss Lynn, Mr. And Mrs. Lynn, what are you doing here? Captain Grant didn't mention you were coming. We decided to come at the last minute, I said with an easy smile, forcing politeness into my tone. We wanted to surprise him. Sorry for the trouble, Private Wang. And thank you for coming out. No trouble at all, he said quickly, waving his hands. He turned to the gate guard and added, This is Captain Grant's fiancé and her parents. I'll escort them inside. The guard nodded and no longer blocked our way. After registering our names in the logbook, he opened the gate and let us through. We followed Private Wang down the broad road leading into the compound. Tall poplar trees lined both sides, their leaves rustling softly in the morning wind. Soldiers in uniform passed us now and then, glancing curiously at our small group as we walked by. Miss Lynn, Private Wang said over his shoulder as we walked, what brings you here all of a sudden? The wedding's for Captain Grant, right? Didn't he say he'd talk things over after coming home? We just wanted to come a little earlier. I replied casually, forcing a polite smile, and maybe pick up a few things we'll need for the ceremony. My tone was light, but my eyes were scanning the area carefully, searching for the direction of Grant's quarters. The memory from my previous life came back vividly. As regiment commander, Grant had his own private quarters in the family housing area at the far end of the last row, a single house separate from the others, perfectly convenient for his secret meetings with Bella. Private Wang, I asked, keeping my voice even. Where's Captain Grant training today? Could we wait for him in his quarters? He scratched his head. Oh, Captain Grant isn't at training this morning. He said he wasn't feeling well and decided to rest in his dorm. Of course. Rage surged up from my chest like fire. He had told me he had urgent duties, that he couldn't come home to talk about the wedding. But in truth, he was resting in his room with another woman. The sheer shamelessness of it made my blood boil. My parents had heard him too. Their faces darkened immediately. Dad's hands clenched into fists at his sides, and I could see the fury building in his eyes. He understood now that everything I'd said was true. Good, I said coldly, my voice steady. Then we'll go see him. I forced down the anger rising in my throat and turned to Private Wang. Please take us there. He didn't suspect anything, simply nodded. Sure, follow me. As we followed him toward the family quarters, my heartbeat quickened with every step. The closer we got, the heavier my chest felt. All the humiliation, the pain, and the helpless rage from my previous life surged together and hardened into something stronger. Resolve. Grant. Bella. Your perfect days are over. The family housing area consisted of rows of identical red brick buildings, neatly aligned. Each house had a small patch of open space in front. Some families had planted flowers, others had stacked tools or old crates. Private Wang led us toward the last row at the far back. The closer we got, the tighter the knot in my stomach grew. Grant's quarters were at the very end on the west side, a single house with its own small courtyard. The low wall was covered in morning glories, giving it an appearance of quiet charm. But to me, that so-called peace was nothing more than the perfect cover for his and Bella's betrayal. "This is Captain Grant's place," Private Wang said, pointing to the red brick wall and the wooden door ahead. "I'll leave you here. Miss Lynn, Mr. and Mrs. Lynn, you can knock yourselves. The captain's resting inside. He's probably still asleep." I nodded, keeping my expression calm. "Thank you, Private Wang. I appreciate your help." He smiled, turned to leave, and called back over his shoulder, "If you need anything, just shout. I'll be over at the admin building." We watched him walk away. The courtyard fell silent, broken only by the faint shouts of soldiers training in the distance. Mom clutched my damp hand nervously. "Lisa, maybe I should be the one to knock." "I'll do it," I said firmly. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward and rapped gently on the wooden door. "Knock. Knock. Knock." The sound echoed clearly in the still air of the yard. No answer. I frowned and knocked again, harder this time. "Grant, are you in there?" "It's me, Lisa. My parents and I came to see you." Still no response. Dad's brows furrowed. Didn't that young man say he was inside resting? Why isn't anyone answering? "Maybe he's in a deep sleep," Mom murmured, though even she didn't sound convinced. I stared at the wooden door, my pulse pounding in my ears. I already knew the answer in my heart. He wasn't asleep. He was pretending not to hear us. And the reason was simple: he wasn't alone in there. Bella was with him. They must have heard the knocking, realized I had come, and were now panicking, scrambling to figure out what to do. I quietly moved toward the window. It was made of wood, with thin white paper pasted over it. Through the faint light, I could see vague shadows moving inside. Standing on my tiptoes, I tried to peer in. The curtains were drawn tightly, and the room was dim, but I could still make out blurred shapes shifting about. "There's someone in there," I whispered to my parents. "The curtains are shut tight. It doesn't look like an empty room." Dad stepped up to the door and pushed on it with his hand. To our surprise, it didn't budge, not even an inch. He tried several times, but it was locked solid. His face darkened like a thundercloud. "It's locked from the inside." "Locked?" Mom gasped, her eyes wide in disbelief. Why would he lock the door if he's home? The answer was obvious, but Mom still didn't want to accept it. The man she had always believed to be upright and dependable, her future son-in-law, was doing something shameful behind a locked door. I didn't speak. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to listen. At first, there was nothing but the pounding of my own heartbeat. Then faintly, I caught the sound of laughter, a woman's laughter, soft and teasing, tinged with flirtation. A moment later came a man's voice. Grant's voice. His tone carried both affection and irritation. "Stop fooling around. I think I heard someone knocking outside." "Who could it be at this hour?" The woman's voice came again, sultry and sweet. "No one would dare bother you now." "Bella, keep your voice down," Grant said, his tone low and warning. "If someone hears us, it'll be trouble. The wedding's in 3 days. I can't afford any mistakes." "Wedding?" she sneered, her laugh dripping with disdain. "You don't love her. You're only marrying Lisa because of her father's connections. She's just helping you get promoted to division commander. Once you're there, you'll leave her anyway and marry me instead." "Quiet," Grant scolded again, but his voice was gentle, not angry. In fact, there was even a note of comfort in it. "Don't worry. Once I'm promoted, I'll get rid of her. Then I'll marry you properly. You'll be the commander's wife." I couldn't bear to listen anymore. Each word stabbed into my chest like a knife, cutting deeper and deeper until I could hardly breathe. The scenes from my previous life overlapped perfectly with the present one, flooding me with rage and anguish. So it was true, he had never loved me, not even from the beginning. Marrying me was nothing but a calculated move in his climb up the ladder. And Bella, she had known all along, willing to stay hidden in the shadows, waiting for the day she could take my place. "Bastard," Dad hissed, his whole body trembling, fists clenched so tight his knuckles cracked. If I hadn't stopped him, he would have kicked the door down right then. That ungrateful snake. I helped him rise through the ranks. And this is how he repays us. To betray my daughter like this, shameless. Mom's eyes were red, tears pooling as she stared at me. Her voice quivered, thick with guilt. "Lisa, honey, I'm so sorry. Your mother was blind to ever trust him. I can't believe we almost let you marry that kind of man." "It's not your fault, Mom," I said, wiping the corner of my eyes and taking her hand. "Don't blame yourself either. If we have to blame anyone, blame them for being so good at pretending. But now it's over. We saw it with our own eyes, heard it with our own ears. We'll never walk blindly into their trap again." I turned toward the heavy wooden door. My earlier anxiety and hesitation were completely gone, replaced by nothing but cold hatred and resolve. "Grant, Bella, you wanted me to be your stepping stone, to let me help you climb higher, only to kick me aside when you're done." I let out a silent, bitter laugh. "Today, I'll shatter your beautiful little dream myself." "Dad." "Mom," I said quietly. "We can't just wait here for them to come out. They're probably in their right now trying to come up with an excuse. If we let them prepare, they'll just deny everything. We have to go in. We can't give them the chance to hide." Dad's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with fury. "You're right," he said through his teeth. "They need to give us an explanation today." "But the door's locked," Mom said, glancing at it nervously. "How do we even get in?" I looked around quickly, and my gaze landed on an iron bar leaning against the corner of the courtyard wall. It was one of Grant's tools. He used it for prying things open. I remembered seeing it in my previous life. "Got it," I muttered, striding over to grab it. I weighed it in my hands. It was heavy, solid, strong enough to break a lock. "I'll use this to pry it open," I said. Mom looked alarmed. "Lisa, isn't that too much? What if someone sees?" "The louder the better," I said coldly, gripping the iron bar tight. "Let everyone see exactly what kind of filth these two are hiding. I want the whole world to know how disgusting they are." With that, I stepped up to the door, positioned the bar under the lock, and pressed down hard. The metal jammed into the crack. I pushed with all my strength, the veins in my forearms standing out. The old wooden door creaked under the pressure, the sound sharp and jarring in the stillness of the compound. "Lisa, careful," Mom cried, stamping her foot in panic. She was torn, afraid I'd hurt myself, but even more afraid that the noise would draw attention. "I'm fine," I said through clenched teeth. With one last surge of strength, there was a loud crack. The lock snapped clean off, and the door burst open with a bang. A rush of air hit my face, thick with the smell of soap mixed with cheap perfume, completely out of place in a military dormitory. I lifted my gaze, and my blood went cold. The room was dim, the curtains still drawn. On the bed by the wall, the sheets were a tangled mess. Grant stood there wearing only his military pants, his bare chest covered in red marks. Beside him, Bella clutched a bed sheet to her body, her hair disheveled, her arms and neck mottled with hickeys. Both of them stared at us wide-eyed, frozen in shock. A kettle lay overturned on the floor, hot water pooling at their feet. On the table were two half-empty ceramic cups, one of them stained with lipstick, not my color. "You, what are you doing here?" Grant was the first to react. He yanked the blanket over Bella and scrambled to grab his uniform shirt, his voice shaking with anger and panic. "Lisa Lynn, are you insane? You broke into my room." Bella finally snapped out of her daze. She covered her face with both hands, her shoulders trembling as she began to sob softly. "I'm sorry, Lisa," she cried between gasps. "It's all my fault. Please don't blame Captain Grant. I was the one who acted foolishly. It was me. I wasn't thinking clearly." Her voice quivered with practiced fragility, her teary face looking pitiful and innocent, just like before. In my past life, I'd fallen for that same act, believing she'd been the one who seduced Grant, believing her tears, believing she'd simply made a mistake. But now I knew better. This wasn't some moment of weakness. It was a performance, an act the two of them had staged together. "Foolish," I let out a cold laugh, stepping slowly into the room. My gaze cut through them like a blade. Nurse Bella, you climb into another woman's fiancé's bed in broad daylight, and you call that foolish. Lisa, please let me explain. Grant had thrown on his shirt, though the buttons were uneven. He hurried toward me, reaching out as if to take my hand. It's not what you think. Bella and I just happened to meet. I wasn't feeling well, and she came to get me some water. She must have fallen asleep by accident. Fallen asleep. Dad's face turned an iron shade of fury. He stepped forward in one stride, pointing a shaking finger right at Grant's face. Do you take us for fools? A man and a woman, half-dressed in bed together, and you expect us to believe you just fell asleep. I must have been blind back then to think you were a good man, to mentor you, to let my daughter marry you, and this is how you repay us. His roar made the window paper tremble. My father had always valued honor and integrity above all else. And what Grant had done was a public slap across his face. Mom rushed to my side, gripping my hand tightly, her tears streaming freely now. Grant, what did our Lisa ever do to you? The wedding was already set. How could you do something like this? How is she supposed to face anyone now? Mr. and Mrs. Lynn, please don't blame Captain Grant. Bella sobbed harder, her voice breaking between hiccups. It's me. It's all me. I admired him. When I heard he was getting married, I felt heartbroken. I came to talk to him, but I drank a little too much and I made a terrible mistake. If you want to scold someone, scold me. Don't take it out on him. As she spoke, she wrapped the bed sheet tighter around herself and got off the bed, heading toward the door as if to accept punishment. She looked every bit the tragic, self-sacrificing woman. But I saw the truth in her eyes. When she turned, she shot Grant a quick look filled with calculation and cunning. They were putting on a show, a story of a weak woman seducing an unwilling man. Bella would take the blame, and Grant would escape unscathed. In the end, he'd only be branded as someone who'd momentarily lost control. Once things quieted down, he could still move up the ranks as if nothing happened. Bella might face some temporary punishment, perhaps even a reassignment, but eventually she'd find her way back to him. Not this time. I stepped in front of Bella, blocking her path. My voice was icy. Nurse Bella, don't twist this around. It takes two willing people to end up in bed together. You weren't alone in this, were you? Then I turned to Grant, my eyes landing on the red marks scattered across his chest. Captain Grant, I said slowly, my voice cutting through the air like a knife. You said she came to pour you some water, and you both fell asleep by accident. Tell me then, did she pour that water on you? Or did those marks appear while you were asleep? Grant's face turned as pale as paper. His eyes darted away from mine, unable to meet them. That's from she grabbed me. That's all, I didn't let him finish. And you, Nurse Bella, I said sharply. You claim you drank too much, right? Then answer me this, why don't I smell any alcohol on you? I took a step closer, my voice cold. All I can smell is perfume. And not the cheap kind either. That scent costs quite a bit, doesn't it? Can a nurse afford that on her salary? Bella's sobs stopped abruptly. The color drained from her face, leaving her pale as paper. She nervously brushed her hair back, her eyes darting with panic. I already knew the truth. Grant had bought that perfume for her. In my past life, I'd had a bottle of the exact same scent. He'd given it to me after his promotion to mayor. I'd treasured it, barely using a drop. Later, I found out he bought several bottles for Bella too. Lisa Lynn, stop making things up. Grant interrupted sharply when he realized Bella had slipped. You're listening to rumors and letting your jealousy run wild, and now you barge into my room and slander us like this. Have you lost your mind? Slander? I let out a low, bitter laugh, staring straight into his eyes. Tell me, Grant, look me in the eye and say it again. The wedding is in 3 days. You said you couldn't come home because the unit had an assignment, yet here you are, hiding in your dorm with another woman. Is that what you call slander? Grant's face turned from red to white. His lips trembled, but no words came out. By now, the commotion had drawn attention. Footsteps and murmurs could be heard outside. The sound of our shouting and the loud crack of the door breaking must have reached the nearby quarters. What's going on in Captain Grant's room? That was a huge noise just now. I heard his fiancé came with her parents too. Doesn't sound like a simple argument to me. The door's been busted open. Something's happened for sure. The crowd's voices grew louder as more people gathered. Grant's face darkened. Humiliation and panic flickered in his eyes. He tried to push the door closed, but Dad stepped in front of him, blocking the way. "Oh, now you're scared," Dad barked, his voice booming with righteous fury. "Where was that shame when you were committing this disgraceful act? You weren't worried about your reputation." Then he turned toward the crowd outside. "Everyone should see for themselves what kind of man Captain Grant really is." I glanced at the doorway. People were pressing closer now. Soldiers in uniform, officers' wives, and curious onlookers from the housing area. Faces leaned in, whispers spreading like wildfire. My gaze shifted back to Grant and Bella, both pale and trembling, their lies stripped bare before everyone. A fierce satisfaction welled up inside me, dark and cold. This is just the beginning, I thought. "Grant, Bella, everything you owe me and everything you owe my parents, I'll make sure you pay back piece by piece." Outside, the crowd thickened. Soldiers and families whispered in shock, their words buzzing like a swarm of bees. "Captain Grant, this isn't right," one soldier said bluntly. "Even if it's a private matter, you can't have another woman in your quarters." "Isn't that Nurse Bella from the medical unit? She always seems so quiet. How could she do something like this?" His fiancé came all the way here to confront him. "If she's knocking down doors, she must have had enough." Every word pierced through the room like a dagger. Bella began to sob harder, clutching the sheet around her as she shrank behind Grant, looking pitiful and terrified. "Lisa, I really know I was wrong," she choked out. "Please forgive us this once. I swear I'll never do it again. I'll leave the base. I won't ever bother you again." If this had been my past life, I might have softened at her pitiful tone. But now, all I felt was disgust. "Leave the base?" I sneered, my eyes dropping to the watch on her wrist, a Shanghai brand men's watch, the exact same model as the one Grant had given me as a token of our engagement. The only difference was a tiny scratch on the face of hers. "Nurse Bella," I said coldly, "that watch you're wearing, it was a gift from Captain Grant, wasn't it? He told me that same model was specially ordered from Shanghai, one of a kind, and that he'd only give it to the woman who truly meant the most to him." I smiled faintly, the words sharp as glass. "So, you're the one who means the most to him, huh?" Bella's face went ghostly pale. She instinctively tried to hide her wrist behind her back, but I caught it before she could move. Grant hurried to interrupt, his voice cracking. "Lisa, stop imagining things. That watch, she borrowed it from me. She had to travel out of the base, and her watch broke. I just lent it to her so she could check the time." I arched a brow, turning to him slowly. "Do you take me for a child, Grant, who lends something as personal as a wristwatch? And funny thing, remember when you gave me my watch? The box was missing the warranty card. You told me you'd lost it. But just now, I noticed the box on her nightstand. The warranty card inside it has the serial number right after mine. Care to explain that?" His face went paper white. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His eyes flickered, darting away from mine. That detail about the warranty card, I had discovered it in my past life while cleaning. I'd even asked him about it then, and he'd brushed it off, saying it was just a coincidence. And like a fool, I believed him. Now I finally understood. He had bought 2 watches at once. One for me, one for her. I pulled a handful of letters from my pocket and tossed them onto the table. "These are the letters you sent me, Grant. Every single one talks about your work, about the wedding date, but not once did you write anything kind or affectionate. And yet, a few days ago, I asked around the base. People told me you've been giving gifts to Nurse Bella and taking her out for walks in the woods behind the camp. How do you explain that?" Grant was drenched in sweat now, his voice unsteady. I was just looking after her. She's new to the base. She's young. I was being responsible as her superior, showing concern for my subordinate. That's all. It's normal, normal. Dad's voice cut through the air like thunder. Normal interactions between men and women require locking the door, stripping down, and sharing a bed. His eyes blazed with fury. Have you forgotten everything I taught you? The army has rules, boundaries. What you've done isn't care, it's disgrace. You've brought shame to your uniform. His words were sharp and heavy, and the crowd outside nodded in agreement. The soldiers' faces hardened with disapproval. They were men who valued discipline and integrity above all else, and Grant had trampled both. Seeing that Grant's excuses were falling apart, Bella changed tactics again. Her tears flowed faster as she turned toward my mother. "Mrs. Lynn, please. I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she sobbed. "I've admired soldiers since I was a child. I respected Captain Grant so much. I just lost control for a moment. Please talk to Lisa for me. Ask her to give Captain Grant another chance. He's a good man, truly." He just lost his way for a moment. "A good man?" Mom trembled all over, her voice cracking as she pointed a shaking finger at Bella. "You shameless girl. He's about to get married, and you still had the nerve to sneak in and ruin their engagement. How dare you claim it was just a moment of foolishness? What did our Lisa ever do to you for you to hurt her like this?" My mother had always been gentle and patient, rarely raising her voice at anyone. But now, standing before Bella with tears in her eyes and fury in her tone, she was trembling with anger on my behalf. Watching her defend me, my chest tightened with warmth and renewed determination. I swore again that these two would pay dearly for everything they'd done. "Bella," I said coldly as I stepped closer to her, "you can stop pretending to be the victim. You know exactly what you were after. You thought marrying him would make you rise to the top, didn't you? That you'd become the proud wife of a division commander. Let me tell you right now, it's never going to happen." Then I turned toward Grant, my gaze sharp and unyielding. "Grant, you wanted to use my father's connections to get your promotion while keeping Bella as your little reward on the side, trying to have it both ways. Everything was going according to your perfect plan, wasn't it? Too bad you didn't count on me coming early. You didn't expect me to catch you red-handed. You're being unreasonable," Grant snapped, his face twisting with rage and humiliation. My words had struck home, and the truth in them made him furious. In a sudden burst of anger, he raised his hand as if to strike me. "Don't you dare," Dad roared, grabbing his wrist in midair. His grip was like iron, his eyes blazing like steel. "Grant, if you so much as touch a single hair on my daughter's head, I'll break your arm myself." Dad had been a soldier in his youth. His strength was still formidable. He squeezed so hard that Grant let out a pained gasp, his face contorted as he tried, and failed to pull free. The crowd outside erupted in shock. Whispers rippled through the soldiers and onlookers. "Captain Grant tried to hit her. That's unbelievable. He's gone too far. He's the one who made the mistake, and now he's acting like the victim. Lisa's father is right. This is disgraceful conduct. They should report this to the higher-ups." Just then, the crowd parted. A group of officers in full uniform strode toward us, their expressions dark and severe. Leading them were the political commissar and the chief of staff. The tension in the air shifted instantly. "Grant," the commissar's voice thundered through the courtyard, full of authority and fury. "What do you think you're doing in broad daylight, committing such disgraceful acts? Have you forgotten the honor of the uniform you wear? The trust the organization placed in you?" Grant's face went deathly white. His legs gave out beneath him, and he almost collapsed to the floor. I knew this was the moment. The reckoning had finally arrived. The commissar's voice roared again, like thunder splitting the air. Grant flinched violently, all the fight draining out of him. His wrist, still trapped in my father's grip, went limp. "Commissar Chief," he stammered, trembling all over. I didn't mean for this to happen. It was Bella. She seduced me. I was foolish for a moment. That's all. Please give me another chance to make things right." At his words, Bella froze. Her sobbing stopped instantly, and she looked up at him, stunned. Then the tears started flowing again, hotter, heavier, mixed with fury and disbelief. "Captain Grant, how could you say that?" she cried, her voice shaking with outrage. "You told me you loved me. You said you'd marry me. That's why I was with you. How can you turn around and push all the blame on me now?" Even now they were performing, turning on each other, trying to protect themselves, hoping one would come out clean. The commissar's face darkened like a storm cloud, as he pointed a rigid finger at both of them. "Enough. At this point, you still have the nerve to argue, and you're still standing here pointing fingers at each other." Commissar Jiang thundered, his voice echoing through the corridor. "Do you have any sense of discipline left? Any respect for the organization? Grant, as a commanding officer, You took the lead in violating moral and military conduct, engaging in an improper relationship with a subordinate. Do you admit your guilt? I do. I do, Grant stammered. His head bowed so low he looked like a shrimp curling in on itself. Commissar, I know I was wrong. I'll never do it again. I swear. Please, please give me another chance. I still want to serve the army. I still want to be promoted to division commander to make contributions to my country. Division commander? The chief of staff let out a cold, scornful laugh. His eyes were sharp as a blade. With that kind of conduct, you still dream of becoming a division commander. Grant, you've disappointed the entire organization. I stared at Grant's pathetic figure, bent over, trembling, groveling for mercy, and couldn't help but feel a bitter wave of irony. In my past life, when he'd been promoted, he was so proud, so untouchable, looking down on everyone as if he were above reproach. But now, in this life, stripped of his facade, he was nothing but a coward, desperate to save his own skin, ready to throw anyone under the bus to protect himself. Captain Grant, I said, stepping forward until I was directly in front of him. Even now, you're still thinking about promotions. Have you forgotten what you wrote in your letters to me? You said you'd cherish me for life. You said you'd value our marriage. You said you'd rise through your own hard work and never disappoint me or my father. So tell me, is this how you cherish me? Is this how you rely on your own ability? I pulled the Shanghai brand watch from my pocket and tossed it onto the ground at his feet. This watch, you told me you had it specially made, that you'd only ever give one to the woman you truly loved. It was supposed to be our symbol of commitment. But now I see Bella wearing the exact same one, down to the matching serial number on the warranty card. What now, Grant? You still going to say she seduced you? That you were just confused when you gave her one too? The watch hit the concrete floor with a sharp clack, the sound echoing like a slap across his face. Grant's expression twisted, his skin paling and flushing by turns, and he couldn't get a single word out. And another thing, I continued, my voice steady but cold. A few days ago, I sent you a telegram saying my mother wasn't feeling well and asking you to come home early so we could talk about the wedding. You replied that the unit had an urgent mission and you couldn't take leave. But I just asked Officer Wang this morning. He told me you didn't have any assignments at all. You told everyone you were feeling sick and staying in your dorm. So tell me, was this your so-called urgent mission? Sneaking around with Bella? I didn't want to worry you, Grant stuttered, his face dripping with sweat. I just didn't want you to think too much. Didn't want me to worry. I laughed, the sound sharp and cold. If you truly cared about me, you wouldn't have betrayed me in the first place. The truth is, you were hiding because you knew you were guilty. You were terrified I'd find out what kind of man you really are. Bella, realizing Grant had completely lost the upper hand, switched tactics again. She turned to the commissar and chief of staff, tears streaming down her face. Sir, I admit my mistake. I just arrived at the base. I'm young and naive. I was fooled by Captain Grant's sweet words. I thought he truly loved me. I regret it now. I really do. Please, I beg the organization to go easy on me. I'll never make this mistake again. Naive, my mother burst out, unable to hold back anymore. Her voice was shaking with fury. You're old enough to be a nurse, but you're still naive. You knew he was engaged, that he was getting married in 3 days, and you still threw yourself at him. And now you want to call that innocence. That's not naive. That's shamelessness. I didn't mean to, Bella whimpered, her voice small but stubborn. Didn't mean to, Mom shot back, her face flushed with anger. You didn't mean to come here in the middle of the night. You didn't mean to lock the door behind you. Not on purpose, I said coldly, my voice cutting through the tense silence. Not on purpose. And yet you're wearing the watch he gave you, using the perfume he bought you. You expect anyone to believe that. My barrage of questions left Bella speechless. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. The color drained completely from her face as she lowered her head in shame. Around us, the onlookers began murmuring again, their voices rising with indignation. She's lying, obviously. Yeah, you can tell they planned this together. She always looks so quiet, but turns out she's got a scheming heart. And Captain Grant should know better, trying to eat from both bowls, using his old superior's family for promotion. Disgraceful. The commissar and the chief of staff's expressions grew darker by the second. It was clear they'd already seen through everything. The chief of staff bent down, picked up the watch from the floor, glanced at it briefly, and tossed it back toward Grant with disgust. "Grant," he said sharply, "the evidence is right here. What else do you have to say for yourself?" Grant kept his head bowed. His forehead glistened with cold sweat, his lips quivering, but not a single excuse came out. He knew there was no way out. Too many witnesses, too much proof. No amount of lies could save him now. "Sure, I know I was wrong," he finally stammered, his voice breaking. "Please give me another chance. Lisa and we were about to get married. I promise I'll treat her well from now on. I'll never make a mistake like this again. Treat me well," I repeated, letting out a hollow laugh. My eyes met his, filled with nothing but contempt. "Grant, do you really think I'd still marry a man like you? Someone faithless, cowardly, and spineless? Do you think I'm that worthless, to be betrayed, humiliated, and still come crawling back?" I turned toward the commissar and chief of staff, my voice steady and resolute. "Sir, I came here today with my parents for one reason, to expose the truth about Grant and Bella. People like them who disgrace the uniform and defile the reputation of the Army don't deserve to stay here. They don't deserve the organization's trust or its promotions. I ask that the organization handle this seriously and give me and my family the justice we deserve." Dad stepped forward beside me, his face solemn. "Commissar Chief," he said, his tone heavy with disappointment. "I watched Grant grow up. I treated him like my own son. I mentored him, guided him, trusted him, and this is how he repays us: by betraying my daughter. I urge the organization to act impartially. We can't let someone like this poison the honor of our troops." The commissar nodded slowly, his face grave. "Mr. Lynn, Lisa, you have our word. The organization will handle this fairly. We will not tolerate this kind of misconduct or moral corruption." He turned to the guard standing nearby. "Take Captain Grant and Nurse Bella to the political office. They are to be suspended immediately for disciplinary review. They will remain in custody until further notice." "Yes, sir," the guards replied sharply, stepping forward to seize Grant and Bella. Grant's face went completely ashen. He struggled wildly, panic filling his eyes. "Commissar Chief, please don't do this. I can't be suspended. I'm up for promotion. Please give me one more chance." Bella broke down beside him, sobbing uncontrollably. "Sir, please. I know I was wrong. I'll accept punishment. Just don't expel me from the base. I don't want to leave the Army," but no amount of begging made a difference. The guards dragged them both toward the door as the crowd instinctively stepped aside, leaving a narrow path. All around, soldiers and families watched them go with looks of disdain and disgust. As Grant passed me, he glared at me fiercely, his eyes full of hatred and resentment. I met his gaze without flinching, my lips curling into a cold smile. "Grant," I thought, "you brought this on yourself. You and Bella, your little dream is finally over." After they were taken away, Commissar Jiang turned back to us. His stern expression softened a little as he addressed my parents and me. "Mr. Lynn, Lisa," he said sincerely, "this happened because we failed to supervise properly. I'm truly sorry for the distress this caused your family. I promise the organization will conduct a full investigation immediately and see that justice is served. We'll make sure you get a fair resolution." Dad let out a long sigh and waved a hand. "Commissar, this isn't your fault. It's that boy's own doing. He forgot his duty and let ambition get to his head. I'm only sorry for our Lisa. The wedding was already arranged and now this happens. This matter is on us," the commissar replied solemnly. Grant's behavior not only violated military discipline, but also disgraced the honor of a soldier. The Army will handle it openly and decisively. We will ensure that Lisa's reputation remains spotless. The chief of staff nodded in agreement. "Yes, Mr. Lynn, you've made great contributions to this Army in your day. There's no way we'll allow your daughter to suffer such humiliation. If there's anything else you need, just tell us. We'll do everything we can to help." Mom wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and held my hand tightly. "Thank you, sir," she said softly to the commissar. "Hearing you say that puts our hearts at ease. Our Lisa is a good girl. She can't let a man like that ruin her name. As the situation settled and the outcome became clear, the crowd that had gathered began to disperse. But as they left, many still turned to glance back at us, whispering quietly to each other. The wives of other officers and soldiers looked at me differently now. The gossip in their eyes had faded, replaced by sympathy and respect. The commissar arranged for us to rest in the reception room of the base. Someone soon brought in hot water and some snacks. I wrapped my hands around the warm ceramic cup and stared at the 5 red characters printed along its side. Serve the people. A flood of emotions welled up inside me. In my previous life, when all this had happened, no one had stood up for me. Grant had already risen to power by then, his position untouchable. I had endured the humiliation alone, drowning in rumors and scorn. But this time was different. This time, my parents were by my side, and the army itself stood with me. For the first time, I wasn't fighting this battle alone. Not long after, a staff officer hurried into the room, saluting the commissar and the chief of staff. "Sir," he said quickly, "we have the preliminary results of the investigation." We questioned Captain Grant's adjutant and several members of the medical unit. They all confirmed that Captain Grant and Bella had been seeing each other privately for quite some time. The relationship between them was well known in the unit. He paused, then continued. We also discovered that, during the evaluation for his promotion to division commander, Captain Grant had tried to pull strings. He used his connection with Mr. Lynn, hoping to leverage it through his marriage to Lisa. It seems he intended to use their family relationship for his own advancement. The commissar slammed his palm down on the table, his voice thunderous with fury. So it's true, Grant is blinded by ambition. He even turned marriage into a stepping stone for his career. The chief of staff frowned deeply. Men like him with such corrupt motives, even if he had been promoted, he would have caused serious trouble sooner or later. It's a good thing Lisa discovered the truth in time. Otherwise, the unit would have been harboring a snake in our midst. Their words filled me with deep satisfaction. In my past life, Grant had indeed climbed the ranks using my father's name and his own false charm. He had gotten away with everything, becoming more arrogant with each promotion. But this time, his path to power was over, completely severed. He'd never again get the chance to wield that authority over anyone. Commissar Jiang turned to me, his tone gentler now. "Lisa," he said, "regarding your engagement to Grant, how do you wish to proceed? The unit will respect your decision." I set my cup down carefully and looked up, my eyes steady. "Sir, I want to cancel the wedding. I'll never marry a man as deceitful and dishonorable as him. And I hope the Army will issue an official announcement stating clearly that Grant violated military discipline and that I was the one who chose to end the engagement. I don't want anyone to misunderstand or think I was at fault." "No problem," the commissar replied immediately. "We'll post an official statement on the unit bulletin board detailing the incident and the disciplinary action taken. Your name will be cleared completely." He paused, then added, "As for the betrothal gifts and personal tokens Captain Grant gave you, you're free to return them all if you wish. And we'll make sure he cooperates." Dad nodded. "That's for the best. We never cared about the dowry in the first place. It was never about money. But this insult is hard to swallow. Now that everything's come to light, we want no further connection with that man." Just then, Officer Wang came rushing in, slightly out of breath, holding a cloth bundle in his hands. "Comrade Lisa," he said respectfully, "these are your belongings from Captain Grant's dorm. I packed them up for you. I also brought along the gifts he gave you before." I opened the bundle and took a quick look inside. There was the sweater I'd knitted and mailed to Grant, along with a few hometown specialties I'd sent him before. The watch and other gifts he'd given me were also in there. I picked up the Shanghai brand watch, staring at it for a moment before letting out a cold, bitter laugh. Then I tossed it back into the bundle without hesitation. "I don't want any of this," I said flatly. "Officer Wang, please hand everything over to the political office. Tell them to return it all to Captain Grant and tell him his things disgust me." Officer Wang blinked, startled, then nodded quickly. "Understood, Comrade Lisa." The commissar checked his watch. "It's about lunchtime," he said. "I've already had the mess hall prepare some food. Go eat something first. This afternoon, We'll hold an emergency meeting to finalize the disciplinary decision for Grant and Bella. As soon as the result is confirmed, I'll let you know." We followed the commissar to the dining hall. The kitchen staff had prepared several home-style dishes for us, simple but fragrant and comforting. After all the chaos and emotional exhaustion, the familiar flavors hit me like warmth in winter. My appetite, which I thought I'd lost, returned with full force. As we ate, Mom kept piling food into my bowl. "Lisa, eat more," she said softly. "Look at you. You've lost so much weight through all this. From now on, we won't ever mention that scumbag again. Let's just move forward and live our lives." Dad nodded in agreement. "That's right. Once this whole mess is over, we'll go back home. I'll find you a good man, honest, steady, someone who will never make you suffer like this again." I smiled and nodded, warmth rising in my chest. With my parents beside me, even the fiercest storm didn't seem so frightening anymore. That afternoon, we waited in the reception room for the results. I leaned back in my chair, watching the tall poplar trees swaying gently outside the window. My heart, once heavy with anger and pain, finally began to settle. The bitterness and resentment from my previous life had mostly faded the moment I saw Grant and Bella exposed and humiliated. In this life, I had protected not only myself, but also my parents. I'd stopped that hypocrite from climbing higher and staining the Army's honor. That alone was worth it. Around 3:00, Commissar Jiang and the Chief of Staff hurried into the room, their faces serious. I immediately knew the verdict had come down. The commissar sat down, opened the folder in his hands, and spoke in a solemn tone. "Mr. Lynn, Comrade Lisa, the party committee has completed its review and reached a decision regarding Captain Grant and Nurse Bella." He cleared his throat and continued. "Captain Grant, as a commanding officer, violated conduct regulations, engaged in an improper relationship with a subordinate, and attempted to use marriage for personal gain. His actions are deemed serious and damaging. After deliberation, the committee has decided to revoke his position as captain, cancel his eligibility for promotion to division commander, and issue him a formal major demerit. In addition, he will be transferred out of his current unit and reassigned to a remote logistics post." Hearing that, I felt an overwhelming wave of satisfaction wash over me. His position revoked, promotion canceled, and sent to a desolate backwater. Grant's career was completely destroyed. He'd never again dream of becoming a commander, never again stand proudly above others. The commissar continued. "As for Nurse Bella, she knowingly engaged in an improper relationship with a superior who was already engaged, willfully interfering in another person's marriage and causing a serious negative impact. After deliberation, Nurse Bella will receive an official warning and be removed from the medical unit. She will be reassigned to work on a state-run farm. From the once polished and admired military nurse to a farm laborer, that was the price she would pay for destroying someone else's engagement." The commissar closed the file and looked at us. "This disciplinary action," he said seriously, "will be made public both within the unit and through your local commune. We want to ensure that the facts are fully clarified and that no rumor or gossip will tarnish Comrade Lisa's reputation." Dad immediately stood, straightening his back before giving the commissar and chief of staff a crisp salute. "Thank you, sir. Thank you to the organization. We're very satisfied with this outcome." I stood up as well, bowing my head respectfully. "Thank you, Commissar, for ensuring justice was done on my behalf." "This is simply our duty," the commissar replied quickly, motioning for Dad to sit back down. "Please, no need for such formality. If anything, it's we who should thank you, Comrade Lisa, for exposing Grant's true nature in time. You prevented a much greater loss for the Army." At last, the entire matter was settled. The heavy weight that had been pressing on my heart finally lifted. Grant and Bella had received the punishment they deserved, and my own name was cleared beyond any doubt. When we left the base's reception building, the sun was setting. The golden light spilled across the training field, coating the neatly lined barracks in a warm glow. Walking between my parents, step by step, I felt a quiet but powerful hope growing inside me. The tragedy of my past life was over. This time I had my parents beside me, and I was determined to live well, to seize the opportunities that the new era would bring and create a life of true happiness for our family. When the official bulletin was posted, the entire base erupted in commotion. The notice, written in bold black characters on a bright red background, was displayed prominently on the main bulletin board. Soldiers and their families stopped to read, talking animatedly among themselves. Dad, Mom, and I went to see it too. The report stated clearly how Captain Grant had used marriage for personal gain and engaged in an improper relationship with Nurse Bella. The disciplinary results were listed in detail, leaving no room for speculation. "Serves him right," one young soldier said, clapping his hands after reading it. An older veteran beside him sighed. "Such a shame for that uniform. He had a bright future ahead of him, but he chose the wrong path." Mom held my hand tightly, her eyes red, but she smiled through her tears. "Lisa, see. No one's gossiping about you anymore." I nodded, my gaze fixed on the line that read, "Captain Grant's promotion has been revoked." The last bit of heaviness in my chest finally disappeared. In my previous life, he had trampled on my and my parents' dignity to climb to the rank of division commander. But in this life, he couldn't even keep his captain's insignia. That was the most satisfying revenge I could ever ask for. Before we left the base, Commissar Jiang personally arranged a car to take us to the train station. He even handed Dad a small cloth bag, saying, "This is just a token of appreciation from the unit." When Dad opened it, there were 2 pounds of tea and a few bars of soap, precious goods in those days. He tried to refuse, but the commissar insisted, so he finally accepted, repeating his thanks again and again. On the train ride home, the scenery flashed past the window, the landscape retreating rapidly into the distance. Unlike the heavy silence of our journey here, my heart now felt light, completely unburdened. Mom rested her head on my shoulder, softly chatting about plans for when we got home. "First thing," she said, "we'll take down the wedding decorations. No need for the neighbors to ask questions. Then I'll visit the relatives who sent gifts and tell them the truth. We'll just say the engagement's off." "You don't have to hide anything, Lisa," I interrupted gently, smiling. "No, Mom. We'll show them the official notice from the army. Let everyone see exactly what kind of man he really was. We didn't do anything wrong. There's no reason to hide." Dad took a long drag from his cigarette and nodded in agreement. "Lisa's right. We've got nothing to be ashamed of. It's the gossips who should be embarrassed once they learn the truth." As the train neared the county station, a woman sitting nearby with a baby in her arms struck up a conversation. Her curious eyes flicked between the three of us. "Ma'am," she asked Mom, "are you coming back from the army base? You don't look like you were just visiting family." Mom opened her mouth to reply, but I spoke up first. "I was supposed to marry a captain in the army," I said evenly. "But I found out he was having an affair with another woman. We went to the base and exposed him. The army's already disciplined him." The woman stared for a second, then raised her thumb in admiration. "Good for you, girl. You've got real backbone. If it were me, I'd probably have just cried and swallowed my misery. A man like that deserves to be disgraced." Others around us nodded and chimed in, agreeing with her. Some shared their own stories of betrayal or injustice. Soon the carriage was filled with voices and sympathy. I realized something in that moment. Telling the truth wasn't scary at all. In my past life, I'd been so afraid of gossip that I'd swallowed all my pain in silence. That silence had only allowed Grant and Bella's lies to spread unchecked. But now, by facing it head-on, I had not only cleared my name, but earned others' respect. By the time we arrived back in town, it was already dark. As we stepped out of the bus station, we saw the village head and several neighbors waiting for us by the gate. "Old Lynn, Lisa," the village head called, hurrying toward us. "You're finally back. The army called the commune yesterday and explained everything about that Grant fellow. They even praised Lisa for her integrity and clear-headedness. It turned out that the military hadn't just posted the announcement at the base. They'd also sent official notice to our local commune and brigade to make sure my reputation was fully cleared." Warmth spread through my chest. The army had truly taken this matter seriously. Dad shook the village head's hand. "Sorry to have worried everyone," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Our Lisa was wise enough not to jump into the fire pit. Neighbors gathered around, all speaking at once, offering words of comfort and admiration. "That Grant must have been blind," one said. "He didn't deserve a girl like you," another chimed in. "Don't you worry, Lisa. We'll keep an eye out for a proper young man for you, someone worthy." As we walked home under the pale moonlight, the dirt road ahead glowed softly, lighting our path. Mom held my hand, her steps light and cheerful. "Well," she said, almost laughing, "no one will dare gossip about us now. Tomorrow, I'll tear down those wedding decorations and return the betrothal gifts. Not a single thing from that man will stay in this house." Dad exhaled a puff of smoke and added, "We don't even have to bother with the dowry ourselves. The commissar said the army will handle it. Grant will have to send it back personally. But honestly, I say we skip the apology. No need to dirty our ears listening to him." I smiled and nodded. "You're right, Dad. We have no ties to him anymore. Let it end completely." When we finally reached home and I pushed open the familiar wooden door, the scent of old timber and the sight of the ancient locust tree in the yard made me feel a deep sense of peace. In my past life, I had foolishly believed marriage could change my fate. I'd pinned all my hopes on Grant, and it had destroyed me and my family. But in this life, I finally understood. Relying on anyone else would never compare to relying on myself. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. Not because of sadness, but from sheer relief and excitement. Grant and Bella had gotten the punishment they deserved. My parents were safe and happy. And I had finally broken free from the tragedy of my past life. And I knew this much. The 1980s were a time full of opportunity. The winds of reform and opening up were already sweeping across the country. If I could seize the right chance, I was certain I could give my parents a good life. I remembered something from my previous life. People used to talk about how our town would soon have factories, how the county seat would open dozens of new shops, and how some people made fortunes selling clothes. All of that was potential waiting for me to grasp. I was still young, strong, and energetic. And most importantly, I had memories from my past life. With effort and determination, I could carve out a future of my own. The next morning, I was woken by noises in the courtyard. When I stepped outside, I saw an officer from the commune accompanied by 2 soldiers from the army. They were carrying the betrothal gifts that Grant had sent, 2 quilts, a bolt of fabric, and 50 yuan in cash. "Mr. Lynn, Comrade Lisa," one of the soldiers said formally, "we've been instructed to return the betrothal gifts along with Captain Grant's letter of apology." He set the items down in the yard and handed over a sealed envelope. Dad took the letter, didn't even open it, and tossed it aside. "No need for apologies," he said coldly. "It's enough that you've returned the things. Thank you for making the trip." The soldiers nodded and, after offering a few words of comfort, left quickly. The commune officer stayed behind to discuss with Dad how to make an official announcement in the village to prevent any misunderstandings or gossip. I looked at the pile of betrothal gifts in the courtyard and felt nothing. No sadness, no nostalgia, not even anger. In my past life, I'd treated these very same things like precious treasures. Now they just seemed like trash cluttering the yard. Mom picked up a pair of scissors and began cutting the 2 quilts, each embroidered with the big red double happiness symbol, into pieces. "No point keeping these," she muttered. "They'll only bring bad luck. Better to cut them up and use them for shoe soles." I crouched down to help her gather the scraps of fabric, feeling a strange surge of energy course through me. That chapter of my life with Grant was finally over. My new life was just beginning. Mom packed the cut pieces neatly into a bamboo basket. Sunlight filtered through the branches of the old locust tree in the corner of the yard, scattering dappled golden light across the ground. As I brushed my fingers over the coarse fabric, I suddenly remembered the me from my previous life, sitting right here, foolishly embroidering mandarin ducks onto my dowry quilts, dreaming of a happy marriage to Grant. Looking back now, those dreams felt like a ridiculous illusion. "Lisa, what are you staring off at?" Mom nudged my arm with a smile. "Didn't we agree to make dumplings for lunch? Let's have something to celebrate." I blinked and came back to myself, smiling. "All right," I said. "I'll go to town and buy some ground meat." I changed into a clean blue cotton blouse and headed out. As I walked along the dusty village road, I ran into Auntie Wang from next door. She used to envy me for being engaged to a military officer, always saying things like, "Don't forget your neighbors once you become a captain's wife." But now, her expression was full of concern. "Lisa, I heard about that Captain Grant," she said. "Don't let it get to you, dear. There are plenty of good young men in our village. I'll keep an eye out for you." Her kindness warmed my heart. I smiled. "Thank you, Auntie Wang. I'm fine. Life's long. There's plenty ahead." As I passed the little convenience stall at the village entrance, Uncle Lee, the shopkeeper, leaned out from behind the counter and called, "Lisa, the commune broadcast mentioned you yesterday. They said you're a smart, upright girl. Didn't let anyone fool you. Here, take a candy. May your life be as sweet as this." He handed me a piece of fruit candy wrapped in shiny paper. I took it and held it up against the sunlight. The wrapper shimmered in rainbow colors, and for a moment, I felt a lump in my throat. Maybe the people in this village were kinder than I'd ever given them credit for. In my past life, I'd been so afraid of rumors that I'd shut myself inside, too scared to face anyone. I hadn't realized that everyone could see clearly who was right and who was wrong. When I returned from town with the bag of meat in my hand, I finally felt something new. Lightness, freedom, and a sense of beginning. This time, my story would be written by me. As soon as I stepped into the yard, I heard Dad talking to someone outside. When I got closer, I saw it was an officer from the commune. He was holding a sheet of paper and speaking earnestly to my father. "Old Lynn," the man said, "this just came down from the county. It's a new notice encouraging people to start their own small businesses. Our commune plans to run a pilot program first, and we're inviting villagers who are interested to sign up." He handed the paper to Dad. I was thinking Lisa's a sharp, independent girl. Maybe she'd be interested, so I came by to ask. My heart skipped a beat. I hurried over and took the notice from Dad's hands. The handwriting was rough, but the message was clear. Individuals were now allowed to run small businesses selling general goods, clothes, or food, and would receive tax exemptions. This was exactly the same policy I remembered hearing about in my previous life. The early reform and opening up policy that changed everything. Many people got their start because of it, opening little shops and eventually living better and better lives. "This is a good policy," Dad said after reading it, his eyes bright with excitement. He turned to me. "Lisa, didn't you say you wanted to do something of your own? This could be your chance." Mom came closer, reading over his shoulder. She didn't fully understand all the policy terms, but she nodded encouragingly. "Lisa, if you want to try, then do it. Mom's behind you all the way. We still have a little savings, and if it's not enough, I'll borrow some more." I gripped the paper tightly, my fingers trembling slightly. In my previous life, I'd been trapped in marriage, revolving my entire world around Grant. I had never once considered what I could do for myself. But in this life, I had freed myself from that worthless man, and I'd been given another chance at the perfect time. Finally, I could fight for my own future, and for my parents too. "I want to try," I said after taking a deep breath, my voice steady. "I want to open a small clothing store in town. I've heard that clothes from the South have newer, prettier designs, and no one's selling them here yet." "I'm sure they'd sell well." Dad's eyes lit up. "That's a great idea. You've got a good eye for opportunity. If you register, the commune can help connect you with suppliers down south and even help you find a good storefront." Over the next few days, I was busy running back and forth between the commune and town. Eventually, I found a small shop space right in the center of town at the crossroads where people passed by all day long. It used to be an unused storeroom, small but bright and well-placed. Dad helped repaint the walls and fix the windows. Mom sewed new curtains. The three of us worked side by side, the whole house buzzing with energy and laughter. For the first time in a long while, our home felt alive again. When the day came for me to travel south to buy inventory, Dad insisted on accompanying me to the train station. As the train started moving, he waved from the platform and shouted, "Lisa, be careful." "All right. Don't worry about home. Your dad's got everything covered." Watching his figure grow smaller through the window, my eyes burned with tears, but I smiled and waved back. The train rattled forward. the familiar fields outside slowly giving way to bustling towns and cities I'd never seen before. I knew I was heading straight into a brand new life. When I returned from the south with my first shipment, the clothing store opened soon after. Bright dresses, blouses, and skirts in all colors and modern styles hung neatly on the racks. From the very first day, the shop was packed. The young women from the town came in groups, laughing, chatting, trying things on, their voices filling the tiny space with excitement. By the end of the first month, even after subtracting all expenses, I had made over 500 yuan, more than Dad earned as the village accountant in a whole year. Mom held the ledger in her hands, her smile so wide it nearly split her face. I can't believe it. Our Lisa's got real talent, better than that Captain Grant ever was. I laughed, watching my parents' happy faces. Warm pride bloomed in my chest. In the past, I had believed happiness depended on someone else. Now I finally understood. The best life was the one you built with your own two hands. The kind of happiness you earn with your own effort is the most solid and lasting kind. Before I knew it, the year had come to an end. My clothing store had been open for more than 6 months, and business was getting better and better. I even hired 2 girls from nearby villages to help out. Dad no longer worried about my marriage prospects. In fact, he bragged about me every day. My daughter Lisa has her own shop, he'd tell people proudly. She's doing better than anyone else. On New Year's Eve, our family sat around the table eating dumplings together. Outside, firecrackers popped and fireworks bloomed across the dark sky, their colors reflecting through the window in bursts of red, gold, and blue. Mom placed a dumpling in my bowl, smiling warmly. "Lisa," she said, "this has been a good year, and I'm sure the ones ahead will only get better." I took a bite of the dumpling, the taste rich and savory, and nodded. "Yes," I said softly. "Things will only keep getting better." I knew then that the tragedies of my previous life were truly behind me. After Grant was transferred to a remote area, I heard he continued to slack off at work and made more mistakes. Eventually, he was demoted. His glorious days were over for good. As for Bella, she toiled away on the farm. Her once smooth hands turned rough and calloused. Her dream of becoming a commander's wife vanished completely. But I had built a new life with my own effort. My parents lived comfortably now. And for the first time, I felt a deep sense of pride in myself, a kind of fulfillment no marriage could ever give. Outside, the fireworks continued to bloom, lighting up our little courtyard with warmth and color. I looked at my parents sitting beside me and felt my heart overflow with hope. The winds of change in the 1980s were sweeping across the land, full of promise and new beginnings. And I was ready to walk forward with my parents, step by step, building a life brighter and happier than ever before. Never again would I look back on the shadows of the past. In their last life, they cried. Now someone else feels the pain. The wheel of fate keeps turning, and love keeps asking for repayment. If you were in this story, would you pay the price for love? This is my story now. And it's only just beginning.